The streets below Gargoyle's sanctuary were a nightmare tableau. People stumbled, their eyes either wide with raw terror or glazed over with unnatural devotion. Some screamed at things only they could see, while others whispered hymns to gods no living tongue should know. The air felt too thick, too sharp, every shadow crawling with movement. Ada pressed her face to the window, voice shaking as she watched the chaos unfold below. Fear was a tangible thing in the air. Jekyll clutched his head, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. He spoke of something ancient, something that delighted in their suffering. Eric nodded grimly, his mask catching the half-light. He spoke of Don Angelo's terrible bargain and the warping of Black Harbor itself. Gargoyle returned from his rooftop watch, soot streaking his stone-like armor. He described the terrifying sight of humanity being rewritten. Quasimodo's huge hands trembled as he set down a rescued child whose eyes were blank with shock. The city's suffering was deafeningly silent. My own internal struggle was visible. The boundary between thought and madness was fraying, whispering promises and threats. I forced my voice steady, realizing the city was being used as a massive ritual circle. If they failed, nothing would remain. Ada's fear was genuine, but her resolve hardened when she looked at me. The scale of the threat felt insurmountable. Jekyll, recovering his composure, directed their focus away from divine power and toward the source, the ritual's physical nexus. The Phantom laid a hand on my shoulder, his voice low and decisive. It was where the madness began, and therefore where it must end. In the artist's studio atop the old municipal building, tension was a physical weight pressing down on everyone present. Gargoyle traced a route with a stone finger, bypassing the main confrontation zones to strike at the heart. Ada took a tactical role, positioning herself to protect the flanks and ensure escape routes remained open if things went wrong. Hyde paced like a caged animal, fueled by adrenaline and pure, savage aggression, dismissing subtlety entirely. Hyde sneered, stepping close enough that the Phantom's hand drifted dangerously near his blade, a silent threat passing between them. When Hyde's aggression peaked, Quasimodo's presence was the only thing that stabilized the group dynamic, offering silent protection. Shards of glass rained down as cultists poured into the room, not just men, but things that defied natural law. The fight erupted instantly. Gargoyle used the environment, turning furniture into deadly weapons against the tide of madness. Hyde found his element in the violence, roaring a primal challenge to every creature that dared oppose him. I grabbed Ada, dragging her behind a toppled statue as the fighting intensified around us. Survival became paramount. Quasimodo's booming voice provided the necessary directional shift, pointing them toward a vertical escape route. They fought their way out of the building's interior, carving a brutal passage through waves of screaming, twisted enemies. Despite the sheer panic and chaos, Ada maintained a frightening level of focus, providing crucial ranged support. When the tide of enemies became too much, Quasimodo stood firm, his body acting as an impenetrable barrier for the group. They finally reached open air, standing on a high roof overlooking the full scope of Black Harbor's unfolding nightmare. Across the open square, the Opera House was a beacon of corrupted power, pulsating with the source of the ritual magic. Hyde's grin was predatory, the culmination of his rage finally finding a target worthy of his destructive power. Their escape plan was now a desperate race across the unstable architecture of the city's upper levels. Every moment was a test of trust. The group relied on each other's unique skills to survive this final push. Logic had failed them. They were now operating purely on instinct and sheer willpower to reach their objective. They were closing in on the Opera House, drawn by the pulsating energy that promised either salvation or oblivion. They reached the final threshold, the grand entrance of the Opera House, a place meant for art, now corrupted by eldritch ritual. Don Angelo stood bathed in corrupted light, positioned perfectly to complete his ritual and solidify the city's madness. The energy radiating from Angelo was palpable, a raw, cosmic force that threatened to tear apart every mind in Black Harbor. Every member of the group faced an immediate moral crisis. Retreat and survive, or fight and risk everything. Recognizing the immediate threat, Quasimodo moved first, drawing attention away from his friends and towards the enemy ranks. While Quasimodo held the line, Hyde launched himself at the nearest threat, the cultists guarding Don Angelo. Ada realized that merely fighting was insufficient. They had to disrupt the physical elements fueling the spell. I felt the madness calling to me, offering a seductive path of power that promised an end to the struggle, but at a terrible cost. Knowing their time was short, the Phantom made himself visible, drawing the primary focus of Don Angelo's malignant gaze. Jekyll understood that the source of the power was rooted in emotional despair and confronted it with intellectual defiance. With the combined efforts of their attacks, the massive energy field surrounding Don Angelo began to flicker and crackle violently. As the initial wave of chaos subsided, they realized their immediate goal was achieved, but the greater threat remained active. Dust settled over the opera house. The screams had lessened, replaced by a deep, agonizing silence, the sound of a city recovering from trauma. As Don Angelo collapsed, his mask slipped, revealing a horrifying truth about who was truly manipulating the chaos. The cosmic entity was not the source of the madness. It was merely being channeled by something far more intimate and local to Black Harbor. They looked around the opera house, realizing that the most dangerous threat was not outside, but hidden in plain sight within their own ranks or community. With the immediate threat neutralized, their focus shifted to survival, getting out of the city before the true villain struck again.